Good afternoon. I want to take this time to welcome everyone to the Little Rock City Board of Directors agenda setting meeting for November the 15th, 2022. I want to thank all those that are online watching as well. Well, now, members of the board, as we're looking through the consent agenda, any questions on items 1 through 5? All right, we'll now move towards the planning and development items 6 through 14. Director Wyrick.
Thank you. I have a question on item number 10. This goes against our policy in the city of Little Rock to provide sewer without annexation, and I'm trying to figure out why this would be presented to us in this kind of fashion.
Mayor.
Mr. Moore.
Director Wyrick, I would agree with you 100%. This is the project that Judge Hyde is working on for the homeless village that's just adjacent to the city limits. And because it's a governmental entity and we've been working very closely with them, we've worked with wastewater and they're all supportive of doing it this way. So this is why it is unique, and I would assure you, wouldn't if it wasn't a governmental entity like the county and just adjacent to the city limits, I wouldn't be recommending it. But after working with everyone, I think this is a prudent approach.
So, you know, I'm all about providing situations for the homeless. In fact, I've talked to Judge Hyde about this particular one. Not this particular location, because I didn't know exactly where it was until this came out. And when I talked to him, I said one of the first things that you need to do is socialize this with the community. The community doesn't know anything about this. This is the only thing that they've seen. The other question that I have about it is the fact that we have an application that's going to be coming before us, which is a annexation that is right next to, it's adjacent to our city limits boundary. So what implications does this act that we're talking about doing have on future annexations, or how do we deal with approving this and then looking at other locations that want to get our sewer that are in the extraterritorial boundary?
Sure, and I think you all know me, and I've always said this is the sort of hammer that, or maybe it's not a hammer, but the leveraging tool that we have as far as growth in our city. That's why we're having our joint meeting with CAW and wastewater representatives will be there also on December 1st. Because again, I do believe this is something as far as how Little Rock grows is very important. I looked at this differently, again, because of the fact that it was a public entity. We work very closely with the county, and I don't believe it impacts private annexations going forward.
I'd like to have a statement from our city attorney that reflects that, because, as I said, we've got an annexation that's coming up that's in the same situation that we have right here, and we'll have future locations like this.
And Tom, excuse me, Tom was in the sessions when we talked about the approach. So, but we can, Mr. Benton, if we could be sure he sends out a memo.
Because there'll be people that will use this to get their needs in the extraterritorial boundary.
And I'll be totally against it because I think the city board has a policy in place that I'm very supportive of, and I think it's helped how this city has grown. Again, this to me is very unique when I think it's a fair question. Does that impact us going forward? And I
And
think
that's my concern. And how many times have we ever done this? I remember not too far down the road from there, when we had a subdivision, it was damaged by the tornado. They had a sewer treatment plant. It went bad. We annexed them and provided sewer to them. So that's been our policy. That's been our rule. And I would like some sort of legal statement that says that this does not impact our future issues in the extraterritorial boundary. Now, as you know, I work with the homeless organization and am engaged in that group. So to me, it's not about the homeless, it's not about the housing, but it is about our future extraterritorial boundary development, in that someone else can come up and say, well, I'm going to put the subdivision in and on demand require sewer to be placed to that location.
I understand.
Thank you.
And Director Wyrick, I will make sure that Tom is aware of your concerns. Just initially hearing your concerns, I do agree with Bruce because we're dealing with another political subdivision. This would be the exception, not the rule.
Okay, I'd like something in writing, something formally presented to me and this board, so if we have future situations like this, we have what our legal standing is. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Hines?
Thank you, and I'll clarify since I'm liaison to Water Reclamation and talks with them today. So we do provide sewer outside the city to 3 other municipal entities. I think they're called, maybe not cities, but they're Camac Village, College Station, and Alexander. We provide sewer to them outside the city limits, as well as there are 600 to 700 individual accounts that I think were legacy accounts that came into the system over the years before we set our policy that are also served. So we do have some precedent for being able to do this. Thank you.
And as you said, it was before we set our policy.
Well,
So-
not Camac and Alexander. We have since, I know Alexander, we've renewed their stuff and since I've been on the board. So some of this has come in after. I think the 600 to 700 individual accounts probably was previously, but the relationships with Camac, College Station, and Alexander have been existing since I've been on the board and have been re-ratified.
Director Peck?
Yes, thank you. I would like item 14 held separate, please.
Which item?
Pardon, 14?
Director Webb?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I was going to go back to number 10, and while Vice Mayor Hines answered a question that I had, I just did want to address one comment that Director Wyrick made, and I believe that there has been outreach to neighbors about this project, and I'm excited that Judge brought it to us. I've been to Texas 3 times to look at the project that this one is modeled after, and in reality, the project in Austin actually lowered the crime rate in the nearby neighborhoods, and the people were really excited about that, and it felt like it made the community a safer place to live. It's a phenomenal project. So, and thank you, Director Hines, for clarifying that about the other municipalities. That's it.
Thank you, Director Webb. Director Warwick, is your hand still up?
Well, it went back up. I wanted my fellow board member, Director Webb, who I have a lot of respect for, and I know about her outreach and the things that she does, but I had a long conversation with Judge Hyde about this. It does sound like it is a good plan. It's modeled after Austin. We went into a lot of details about it, and I told him that he needed to reach out to the neighbors that are around that location. And I talked to at least one neighborhood today. They don't know anything about it. He's not reached out to them. They did not get notification of this through the Planning Commission or any other any other means. And so, in as much as maybe he's reached out to some of the immediate neighbors, he's not done that. And that was key to me, that we go to the community and we talk to them about it, and we explain it to them, we let them know, you know, the ins and outs of it. But I'm aware of how it's been modeled, and I'm aware of the statistics around that location. So I just wanted Kathy to know that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Director Webb, is your hand back up?
Yes, and while it would do no good to get into a back and forth on this, I talked to Judge Hyde just a little while ago, and I know there has been direct outreach, and I don't think it matters how much outreach you do. I know you're going to miss a neighbor. He was talking to me about a couple of the churches and other neighbors with whom he has spoken, and I would guess that next week we'll have a presentation and a good discussion, and we can cover things at that point. But thank you, Director Wyrick, for.
Yeah, this is
pointing
not
out your
a
concern.
neighbor, it's a neighborhood
Thanks.
that is located on Chico Road. So I just think it's important that we socialize this, so.
Do we want Judge Hyde, our representative, to be here on next Tuesday? I don't know if that quorum court meets then or not. Well, we can talk to him. But we'll get the statement from Tom, and then,
It might be good to have someone to talk about the plan.
Members of the board, any questions on items 15 through 20? Director Wright?
Number 17, can we see the pictures of the structure?
Can we show the pictures of the structures, please, for item number 17? Director Compuris?
Going back to your first question, Tom was going to get some information, or Bruce, about 20.
20? Oh, yes.
oh, yes, we were, forgot this was deferred for 1 week, but yeah, we'll have something for Friday.
And I know that this isn't a subject I want to talk about, but I want to know if there's any other options we have.
Yes, sir. Members of the board, anything on item 21?
Mayor, may we go back to 18? I need a presentation on that.
All right. Presentation on item number 18. Mr. Collins?
We could bring up the zoning map. Can I show the location of this? Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the board. The property is located at 11415 West Markham. And you'll see the location. It's just right across the street from the strip center, has a academy in it, the pizza across from it. It's an existing building. The building actually was permitted under, it was an old, people probably drove by it on West Markham. It was a bank drive-through at that location. So it's between Markham and the creek. What the applicant is looking to do is they're wanting to rezone the property from C3, and that's what it is, existing C3, to a planned development to allow for vehicle service in that location and also outdoor display. The outdoor display would be a vehicle rotation device right there located at Markham. If we could bring up now the site plan for the property, site sketch. We can zoom in a little bit. That'd be a little helpful. It kind of shows the location of where they're wanting to put the outdoor display, which you'll see it's right there at the driveway. They're corner of that property on Markham for it. The reconfiguration of this lot, what they're looking to do, would allow for 8 parking spaces total, and of those, one would be have to be handicap accessible. That's the one farthest to the right. And another spot would take up the rotational vehicle, their outdoor display. When the staff done the calculations of what it would be, what the spaces that they would need, for our code, it would be 27. So there's a little shy on the parking spaces. For us, we felt like this was a little bit too intense of a development for the site, as explained. The layout that they're proposing doesn't show the existing bank that was there, but it was more, it was all drive-through at that location. This one would be more of a service. There's other car services in the area just to the east. That's where they also service vehicles, but it's just the intensity of the site. It's the we don't believe there's enough parking stalls for that because there will be, the applicant can explain, if called up, that they will have service come to the facility. People drop off vehicles, also be vehicles serviced in. This place is primarily, he makes signage, he also makes vehicle wraps to wrap the vehicles, to put on vehicles, from wrapping the vehicles in their entirety, to also just placing them on the car doors for that location. So we just feel that the site is too small for it. We do not believe that an outdoor display right there at location is appropriate for that. We recommended denial. It was approved at the Planning Commission, 8-4, 2 against. There was nobody present at the Planning Commission that spoke against the application. The applicant was there speaking for the application.
So they've already renovated the building?
The building, the existing structure that you see out there was built without a building permit. And it has several levels to it. What you actually see from the roadway is a building wrap. It's what we would consider a sign or that type of nature. It is mounted to the existing structure, which would, and some of that is the old bank drive-through building, but it has been added on since, I guess it'd be over a year and a half ago.
I know I'd seen some changes take place there.
But this proposal, if approved, the existing building that's out there now in its entirety would be demolished.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it would, that's the proposal. Currently, they do have a demolition permit for this property,
Okay.
but they have not started demolition.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. Okay.
Thank you. Members of the board, any questions on item number 21?
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
we go back to 19.
Yes, ma'am.
This is short-term rentals. Mr. Collins, the neighborhood residents have expressed some concerns that we are treating owner-occupied short-term rentals the same as just units that the owner is not living in. Is there a reason for that? And can we not treat those the same? Or why did we make that decision that they would all be treated the same?
Well, that was just and you're correct, they are treated the same in all of the regulations up to the actual, just the yearly inspection and permit, which would be based on a per-room basis. So where a short-term rental may have 1 or 2 rooms that they're renting and they're living there, then that's just treated different as far as that aspect, but not necessarily the procedure aspect of the rezoning. If you're talking about the special use permit, it was in part of our meetings with out in the neighborhood and going through with the planning commission. It was discussed and decided at the planning commission that they would align them all, including bed and breakfast. We did have ordinance for bed and breakfast and codes, just to align all short-term rentals under a special use permit. And so that's where they all lie right now. So the process would all be the same, whether it is you're renting a single room or an entire home. The procedure and the regulation of is the same.
Okay, I sent you some information that a constituent, well, she actually owns property in one of my neighborhoods, but she's currently living out of state. But I forwarded that to you about how this one community had ended up with more short-term rentals than they had owner-occupied homes in a certain area, and that was causing a problem for the people that actually lived in that neighborhood. And that's what I'm hearing from the constituents who have contacted me about this. They feel like their quality of life, their property values are going to be impacted by all of these rentals that are taking over certain neighborhoods. So have you all looked at that?
I did read that, and the
did?
only comment that I can address on that is that we did initially look at, do we limit the number across the city? And the question is how do you do that in a specific neighborhood? And really we do not believe that you can just say in this neighborhood we're going to limit to a certain number. We felt like at the end of the day, in just pursuing the special use permit, which allows for the neighborhood notification, it allows for that public hearing, that those concerns can be addressed at that time. Because we're looking now, we don't know if a neighborhood may have just 5 in it, or may have less, may have 1. And then, yes, there is neighborhoods that even long-term rental has started to dominate even single-family home ownership in there. So I can understand the concern. I just don't know how we could regulate and limit to a specific number, in specific neighborhoods. I've seen where municipalities have limited a number across the entire city, but not necessarily divided it out to specific neighborhoods. Now, on some of the neighborhoods, especially as you get further out west, where their covenants and restrictions for their subdivisions are still in place, also hold that you cannot have certain, maybe any commercial business, which this would be considered a commercial business. And they may also have in place to limit short-term rentals. I don't know about some because that might not have been something that they specifically thought about to label and say short-term rentals, but it is a commercial business, and that is a private agreement. So when you buy a lot in that subdivision, then you'd be bound by that agreement if it is still in place. Other areas, as in old part of the city, the downtown, the lot and block, may not have those covenants and restrictions in place. And so these would apply to all, but a place that may have a covenant and restriction may have more restrictions than what either a conditional use permit or review process is.
Do we have any information or data that you've seen that indicates how these short-term rentals affect property values? Do we have anything that we could look at?
I don't readily recall that we have anything directly for property values. The values was not something that we looked at. I can research that and get the information if I can find some back to you before Friday.
I would appreciate it, because I really have some concerns about this particular ordinance, and my fears are unfounded. They could be, but it just seems to me that our single-family residential neighborhoods are under siege. Everything wants to come in and impact them. And whether it's apartment complexes that are locating right next to them, or now you want to take the single-family homes and turn them into short-term rentals where you got a revolving door of people. And it just seems like it's just disruptive to the fabric of what the neighborhood was designed to be. And I know times are changing and all of that, but sometimes change is not good.
And yes, ma'am, and I do understand, and just keep in mind that short-term rentals are happening today. They're happening now. This ordinance is not stopping that, preventing that. It is just regulating that for life safety, health and welfare, and public notification process. And that's what we was striving for. We was trying to not be too restrictive and elimination, because we know they're there, they're utilized. But we also just, like I said, it depends on what your municipality is. And the other municipalities that are more like on the Gulf Coast and some other areas in Nashville and other cities we researched, it's at staff level on some of the short-term rentals. We didn't believe that was something that needed to be proposed to the Planning Commission. We felt like there needed to be the public involvement, the public notification in front of a board or commission. It was just the total process that we intended to regulate.
Well, like I said, I understand that we need to regulate this, and I'm glad that we are doing this. It just seems that if you buy a single-family residential home, you don't know what you're going to end up living next to. Even though you bought in a subdivision that said single-family residential, you don't know. And it just seems like there would be some protections there. So I just feel like our neighborhoods are under siege. So I'm not even sure I'm going to support this, but I know we need some type of regulation to at least have some type of notification. And right now, apparently we don't. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Computers.
Ms. Collins, while you're up there, ordinance number 14, we may have to rent War Memorial Stadium next week for the number of people that are going to be here. Could you go over the traffic study and what the residents feel like is an inadequate traffic study?
Okay, well, I don't have the traffic study with me today, but I make sure I'll give it to the board what we have. Staff did review a preliminary analysis of the traffic study. There's two key points in the study. It's the points of access. One of the concerns was that we raised was, is this development going to be able to use a systematics drive? Because at that time, and it still is, it's private, do they have an agreement to do so? If you give me a moment, let me pull up their responses to some of those so we can talk about those. I'll just read what they do have an agreement to use. So the development does have an agreement to use unrestricted to systematics drive. And that was one of the concerns, because can they get to that drive, or are they going to go out the other drive? And then the numbers, what are the numbers they come back with? Our only concerns when we reviewed it was some of their peak hours at the noontime to kind of put in there to redo the traffic study. But in general, the traffic counts that they were proposing to generate did not have an impact to the system. For that, we believe that the roadways and the intersections, and also including the projected for the Department of Transportation's intersection at Rodney Parham, that the development could handle it. And just because of it's the mixed uses that are there. And so we do have that, and we can send it out to the board and actually write up that summary of what we have. What I have is just an email that was sent.
Would you mind commenting on the fact that at least what I read from my communication with the neighbors is that they feel that this is an inadequate and premature study?
Could you, I've seen a lot of emails that come through, so are you saying inadequate as far as density, as far as the use at the intersection of Rodney Parham and Cantrell? I've seen several that they, originally it's supposed to all be office. And I think as everybody understands, office development is not going very strong right now. It was in decline a little bit before the pandemic. The pandemic really has declined office at that time. But an office can generate traffic too, so it's just based on that mix. It's based on that density. I think a lot of people also, they've seen that some of the commercial uses, the restaurant uses with the drive-through they were thinking more of a Taco Bell or a McDonald's type of drive-through. I do not believe that that is the type of drive-through that the applicants are proposing. They can better address the types of uses other than the C3 uses that's being proposed in general along here, what they're looking to do for it. But like I said, the density would change based upon what they would look to put in for those uses. So it depends on the actual, what they get into those retail centers and what that generation of that traffic is. So we would evaluate it now on a preliminary basis, but as developments come in, we would look at it every time and location for parking, for the use, and for the generation.
But from what you're saying, are they going to propose and offer a type of drive-through they're going to have, and it will only be those sort of things?
Currently, right now, it is, as you've seen in the write-up, it is just the general C3 uses. They have proposed that restaurant or drive-through, but it has not been limited to a specific user. And I do not know if we can. That'd be more of a legal question, whether you can spot zone and limit a use to a specific user, not a specific use.
Well, but if I understood what you said that, and they're not here, that they're proposing the type of drive-through that will not generate excessive traffic. Is that?
I had talked to the developer about, it would not be like a Taco Bell type use, that type of fast food drive-through.
Okay, but then how are they going to give some comfort to the people that live out there that a year from now it's not going to be Taco Bell?
I can't answer that question because, like I said, it's general C3. You're explaining exactly it's general C3. It is not limited to a specific user.
Okay, I agree with you, but my point is then it's hard to say that we're limiting something, that they're going to limit something if there's no way of limiting it.
I'd agree with that. I mean, and like I said, even traffic studies at this time is real preliminary. It is what we anticipate to come in, what they're proposing, what we think may come in, and as the uses come in, that specific traffic analysis would change based upon what comes in. Because there is a difference, as you've seen across the city, a difference between a Chick-fil-A restaurant site and another type of restaurant site on what traffic generation is.
More questions from members of the board? Item number 22. I mean, 21, I'm sorry. Director Wyrick?
Yes, is this the same utility drainage easement that we saw a couple of weeks ago? It reads the same way, utility drainage easement, west side of Woodlands Trail.
Moore?
Well,
That was to set the public hearing for November.
Okay, so it is the same one that I asked a question about before. Okay, thank you.
Seeing no more questions, meeting adjourned.